it's crazy because, I mean, you know me. Whenever we were working together, I tried and even to this day, I think I do a pretty good job of leaving work at work. I mean, I'll think about it in the back of my head. I will have it there. Like, I might think about things like, oh, I'm going to try this, and it'll just be like a little Post-it note in my head. But like, I try my 100% best to not let gymnastics consume me outside of work. I mean, it's all right. Yeah, outside of work when I get home. That is part of the reason why this thing took so long. Because one of the biggest things that I was wrestling with was, it's going to be every day.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to think about, like, who am I going to interview next? Who am I going to talk to next? What are we going to talk about? What topics are we going to talk about? Let me, like, tug at that thread. Like, I held off so much. Well, one, I wanted to be the head coach of somewhere.
Yeah.
So that I could have some weight to my name. So that was the first one. But then also I was like, oh my God, I'm kind of dreading it because, like, I already have to go through a season where I have to give up my weekends. And I have to think about results, and I have to think about progress, and I have to think about what are we going to change this week for the next one, or like in advance at the meet, I'm thinking about what we're going to change for the next one, right? So like we're and that's all in my head, or maybe I'm making notes, I'm talking to my coaches, I'm doing that. Like, I already have that in my head, right? So that's already outside of regular day-to-day 9 to 5 or like the hours, right? But then I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna try to make this happen. And I had started the media company, and I had, COVID was doing good, and it was decent. And I was like, oh my God, if I do this thing, I had the idea for Chalkbox. I had the name.
I don't think you're doing so good with that because you literally were here for how long? 8 hours.
8 hours.
And now we're talking about gymnastics.
We're talking about gymnastics. But like, I remember telling my girlfriend too. I'm like, it's gonna be like all the time.
Yeah.
Especially when we have to film about this. Like, I have to prep for it, and then I have to think about it, and I have to, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, gymnastics is going to be like my entire life. And I think part of the reason that I was doing a good job of keeping my personal life and being really sane outside of work was because I was able to, like, I'm just going to leave that over there, and I'm not going to worry about it unless I'm like, it's time for me. So, but I know a lot of people, a lot of adults that burn out really, 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 not quickly, but eventually. It's like a slow burn, and then they like burn out because this thing consumes their entire life.
I think at some point, both you and I have had a conversation about like doing something different, and just
100%.
And just like, okay, is this what I want to do long term? And it's a hard decision, definitely. And I think I've been in that place. But I don't know what it is that we're still, I mean, we know what it is, but because you kind of sometimes stop and think and be like, okay, is this really what I'm doing? Like, you really invest every single like moment, even at home, thinking about it. You come here, you spend hours and hours at the gym, and then from one day to another, that kid is just like,
when they leave, or I'm
doing a different
quit.
sport or whatever. And I mean, there's nothing that you can really do. Like, if they don't want to do it, you can't force them to do something they don't want. But then you're kind of like, this is like one of the times where I was like, is this really like, do I want to keep doing this? And I think it's just that we're very passionate about it, honestly. You're very good at having more hobbies than I do, definitely. I feel like my used to be hobbies were to dance, but I feel like I don't do that. And now me, obviously being a parent, is also much harder for you to go and do other things. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I think about now as a mom is I'm literally spending more time with my athletes than with my own kids. That's crazy.
There's a lot of female coaches that I know that have that same concern of,
it's
like,
that guilt. You get that mom guilt.
And we know people that stopped being head coaches and stopped coaching because they were like, I am not present for my family.
And I don't know how in the world I keep getting myself more involved. I actually just shot myself in the leg not too long ago by making a decision of starting a homeschool program. I was thinking, which I'm starting now in the fall, and I was thinking, okay, great. Like, it was just going to be for my level 4s and up. And I was like, if I have at least half of those girls in the in the morning. Then in the evening, we have less kids, so we can alternate. Me and Sebastian, we can both spend some time with our kids. Just trying to balance out work, home stuff. And then we received a couple more new athletes, and so now we have like half of them in the morning, but now our evening group grew. So now it's kind of like, okay, I'm actually just gonna work 20 extra hours a week. There's no alternating. So it's not a bad thing, and I think it's something that's really hard for me to say, like, I'll just give it to somebody else, because I've had these kids for a while, and it's something that I'm very invested on. So I'm not really ready to give it up. So I guess I'm just working 20 extra hours starting. In the fall.
I mean, I had that sentiment also. I had worked at Discover for 12 years, and coming here was really difficult, because I'm like, oh my God, I have to stop coaching those girls. You know what I mean? During COVID, I didn't stop. During when our head coach left, we didn't stop. Whenever there was like any kind of turmoil, I didn't stop. So it was like really hard. So to make it this an adult conversation, because this is, I feel coaches. This part is definitely not for athletes. Maybe parents can be aware of this if you're watching this, but for coaches, I think that especially in gymnastics, you'll relate to everything that we're saying right now. But also, like, that burnout comes in like many different forms, because it's all consuming. And I've watched this in passing. There's a lot of female coaches that have talked to me where they're regretful about not being part of their family's life. Yeah. There's a lot of male coaches that are heavy smokers, heavy drinkers, because there's like a release that needs to happen, a decompression of some sort. And I've like been actively thinking to myself, like, oh my God, I have to try my best not to let this thing consume me, right? But it's part of the reason why this thing exists. I want this to be an educational platform. But there is something. If you have ever felt burnout, is there something that you do that helps with that, or have you just not felt that at all yet? And your passion and your determination and your refusal to give up the work that you've done to somebody else in terms of like the kids' futures and stuff, is that enough for you at the current moment?
I would say so. I don't think I'm still there. I don't think I'm in a position where I would say, okay, this is really consuming me, and I'm getting bad habits, or or like my work ethic has definitely decreased or has gotten much worse, or my attitude in the gym has been somewhat negative towards my coworkers or my athletes or my parents, anybody that comes in contact with me. I don't think I'm there yet. I think I'm still very in the sense of my job. I think I still have a lot of energy, and I think I still have a lot of goals that I want to meet. And thankfully I have that support. So I don't think I'm there yet. I just hope that it stays that way, because I really enjoy doing what I do. So
does I have to figure out, I have to make sure that I word this correctly. If you have, forgive me, you were talking about making sure that you don't develop bad habits, make sure that that you have the support system. Do you think that if your partner wasn't doing gymnastics, do you think that it would get in the way of your personal life?
I think so. And I think because we have been there before where he wasn't doing gymnastics, and it was hard. It was really hard because I'm not used to being home all the time. I'm not used to. I've always worked since a very young age, and so I've been very used to get out of the house and keep my mind busy. And I think I've been in the position where I was just home every day, which, don't get me wrong, I love my children, but I still feel like, as a mother, you still have to have your goals and,
Agreed. Yeah, motherhood shouldn't be your sole identity.
Right. Yeah. And so I felt like I always had that whenever I was home, which was only 2 months. I think I'm being dramatic, but those 2 months were very, very hard for me mentally and emotionally. I think I was a wreck, honestly. And I think I talked to him at some point. I was like, okay, you're coming back home and we're both going back to gymnastics.
Yeah.
And because at the time, mind you, he wasn't working in gymnastics, I would have been very jealous if he was, and I didn't get to do it. And he's always been he's always been I lost my words. He has always supported me on everything. So I'm very grateful for that too. So as long as I say, hey, I want to do this, he's like, let's do it. So
yeah, I remember when you first got pregnant, I remember telling you like, I can't see you not like being up and about and like working and doing this stuff like that. And then you had also mentioned that your mom was like she gave birth to you, and then she was like back to work. Like, so,
I
like,
definitely
you come
didn't
from
have
like
that example.
That's your blood, though, right? Like, I don't know. Is it in you? It's inside you. Like, you just like working. You like the
we
things
definitely
that you're
talk
doing.
about that all the time because I grew up with my mom. Obviously, my siblings. My dad passed away when I was very little, so she's always been, like, you have to work. You can't depend on anybody. You never know. Like, even if it's a good relationship, you never know what's going to happen to that person, like it happened to my mom. So she's like, you always have to work. You always have to do something for yourself. You can't just not do anything. So, and I think that's definitely just my personality as well. I just can't stay still. So I definitely have to, keep myself. But I've also went to esthetician school, and it was just like random. Like, I'm going to do something different. Apparently, right? So apparently not, because I was like, I'm going to do something different. Like, eventually I'm going to get into this and it's going to be a hobby, but eventually it's going to be a full-time thing, right? No, it's definitely not a full-time thing. Like, I am so involved in the gym and in my athletes and everything that's going on that I don't have time for it. It's just literally just sitting there, and maybe I'll do it once or twice a month, but currently it's just a hobby. It really is. I wanted to make it into a business, and I wanted to.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Starting a business
is hard. Yeah.
Hard. And forgive me if you're a kid watching this. Like, starting a business is hard for the adults.
Yeah, I definitely started it, and I mean, when I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. But it was definitely something that it wasn't as big as my gymnastics passion. Obviously, because we're still here. So
I started this business, and it's been a lot more than a side hustle, and it's been very helpful. I've done a lot with it, but still, it's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard. Okay, we're about to hit the hour mark. So on the last thing about this, so you said you're passionate. You say that you want that you don't feel that burnout yet. Is it because you still have something to prove? Like, do you feel, you mentioned being an underdog. I've talked about being we just talked about being underdogs together at the same workplace. I definitely feel like I have stuff to prove. And I think it's because we were at some point in a giant room filled with coaches that have a long resume. Yeah. And I don't know if it's the bad part of ego or not or whatever, but like, I feel like I still have stuff to prove about, me being in the sport. Do you still feel that way? Is that what kind of keeps you going?
Kind of, but not. I think about it in the sense of I have goals in this sport in the way of like, I want to help my athletes grow and be the best that they can be. I don't feel like it's personal towards me proving anybody else something, because I feel like it's also kind of like I don't know. I think learning and coming down and seeing, like, being the underdog and seeing everybody else, and then you're thinking of yourself like, okay, I'm the underdog. But then you kind of start seeing, it's kind of like when you're like a kid and you say, I can't wait to be an adult and like be around adults that are actually being adults, but then you're becoming an adult and you're like, I just live in a world full of kids. You know what I mean? Like, everybody still has their own issues and their own problems. And a lot of the things that we saw were things that it was like personal issues with themselves.
100%.
So I feel like I'm really good at stepping out and seeing things from a different perspective and really saying, like, it's not really just about me. It's about what I'm doing for other people. Not saying that I don't have goals for myself. I definitely would love to,
But the spotlight is not on you.
No, I don't see it that way.
The spotlight is on the kids.
Yeah. I definitely care a lot about my athletes, and I want them to grow and have better, I guess, just better experiences than I did. And I want them to be, the best that they can be. I definitely have goals. I mean, I don't think any coach here would say like, no, I wouldn't want to make any college gymnast, or I wouldn't want to make a national team member or something like that. Obviously, yeah, that's like, how cool, I definitely want to be put in that spot. But I think that's definitely something that, in reality, that's going to be something that's long term. It's a small percentage all the time. And I can't always be focusing on that and on me, because then that's going to make it a bad experience for the people that are around me. So
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. I really don't think about like what other people are thinking of me, or like what I'm doing currently, or and stuff like that. I think I'm just really focused on my own. I think having this opportunity to coach at the gym that I am, and trying to grow the program little by little, and just try to make it not about me, and exactly, I just want to do what I want and what I've always wanted to do before, and all the things that I saw from my outside perspective and saying like, okay, these are the things that I would never do. You know what I mean? Like make those changes. Yeah. So